Yesterday, Robert Daugherty tweeted this: "In 38 years advocating for doctors, patients, I've never seen a bill that will do more harm to health than AHCA bill being voted on Thursday." Robert Daugherty is a senior vice president at the American College of Physicians, the country's second largest physician group. Today, after he saw the changes in the bill that the Republicans announced last night, he said this: "Version 2.0 is even worse. Medicaid block grants, work mandate ban on further expansion will harm the most vulnerable." And joining us now, Robert Daugherty. Robert, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I want to start, first of all, with what you see as the differences in this 2.0 version, the version of the bill that was hastily written yesterday and released late last night.
Sure, Lawrence, and thank you for having me. The original bill was bad enough because it targeted the most vulnerable people in our society, poorer and sicker people, particularly those on Medicaid. In an effort to, quote, make sweeteners to attract more votes, what the leadership did is make it even worse for those people by putting a block grant option for Medicaid, which means that states will get a lump sum amount of money, and it would cost more than that to take care of the sicker, poorer people in Medicaid. They'd be stuck holding the tab, and that would lead them to drop coverage for millions across the country. And then they made this work requirement that essentially says you got to prove to us that you are able, that you are looking for work or have a job, or states would have the option of denying you coverage. And we believe the American College of Physicians that health care is a right, and people shouldn't be forced to prove that they are able to work in order to have coverage.
And I want to go to something that Donald Trump said about physicians specifically and their reaction to the Affordable Care Act. Let's listen to this.
Many of our best and brightest are leaving the medical profession entirely because of Obamacare. Obamacare has been a complete and total catastrophe, and it's getting worse and worse by the day, and yet you watch the fake media, the fake news, and they try and build it up. It's a disaster, fellas. It's a disaster.
Your reaction to that, Robert?
Well, physicians have frustrations with red tape and things like that, but that has nothing to do with the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare. The physicians I represent, internal medicine doctors, the largest specialty in the United States, are strongly committed to the idea that their patients should have access to affordable health care. And what we know is that the bill that would be going to the House on Thursday would roll back coverage for millions of people, and again, particularly the most vulnerable, and that really sticks in our craw. A society should put its greatest attention to supporting those who need the help the most, which are the poor kids on Medicaid, the elderly in nursing homes in Medicaid, adolescents, people with mental health disorders who get their coverage through Medicaid. And the idea of going after those people and taking the coverage away to our members and to the American College of Physicians is simply unconscionable.
You are getting some lobbying help from Michigan's Republican governor, Rick Snyder, who sent this letter to his congressional delegation, including Republicans in it, saying altogether there are 1.75 million children, seniors, pregnant women, and disabled individuals served by traditional Medicaid in Michigan, and roughly 104,000 of them reside in your district. He wrote to U.S. Representative Tim Walberg in a letter saying that this legislation will adversely impact them. It seems that that's not something that's understood by a majority of the Republicans in the House.
Well, maybe so far. We're still hopeful that the bill will not pass the House on Thursday, or that Speaker Ryan will reconsider moving ahead and rushing this legislation through. But clearly there are Republican governors, Governor Kasich is another, who understand that Medicaid is crucial to the health of their residents, and that in Medicaid expansion states like Michigan and Ohio, terminating that program would have terrible consequences for vulnerable people, particularly older and sicker people who are covered by Medicaid right now. So I think there are more and more Republicans who are getting it. Certainly within the governors, more and more are getting it. But I do think you see more members of Congress, you have members of Congress, House and Senate, that are having strong reservations, at least, with the plan that's being put forward for a vote on Thursday.
Yeah, I think from your experience, you know that when you see this kind of trouble getting through the House, there's probably even more trouble trying to get the same bill through the Senate. Robert Daugherty, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Thank you.
My pleasure.